So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Palo Pierce. I'm from Eduporium. In short, we are a one-stop shop or location for STEM education technology. We're located in Newton, Massachusetts. And today we're pleased to offer a great webinar with two great presenters who we're going to have some fun with. And basically the topic today is Introduction to Microbit. And we're pleased that Katie Henry has joined us. She is from the Microbit Foundation, responsible for the Americas, which is great to see. And then she's brought along Diane Horvath, who is a teacher and who has been using Microbit in her classroom. And she is going to share some great best practices and other things that she's learned in using Microbit both in a remote environment and also hybrid and also in her classroom, which is great to see. So once again, my name is Palo Pierce and I'm from Eduporium. Today we would encourage you, we find that these are best when they're lively and there's questions and answers. So feel free at any time to jump on chat or question and answer, put something in. And then what I'll do is kind of the host interrupt sometimes and ask them the questions and stuff like that if they haven't had the chance to see them. But we really do encourage it. We want you guys to learn from this. It's great for the little tidbits and things like that. In addition, what we're going to do is at the end, we will have a raffle of a couple different Go kits that we have that will go to some deserving educators and more on that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie and Diane, and we're going to learn a lot more about Microbit. So I want to thank them for coming today, and I want to appreciate all the other educators on here. We know it's a very difficult time, and we appreciate you finding the time to get on here today. Thank you. So Diane, and you guys are on.
All right, thank you so much, Palo, and thank you to Eduporium for hosting this event. And to all of you for being here. We hope this will be a fun time where you can get questions answered and get a lot of new ideas for your classrooms and the people that you work with. My name is Katie Henry. I'm a former classroom and STEAM teacher, and I now look after the partnerships for the Microbit Foundation here in North America. I'm very passionate about education. I love teaching. I love working with kids. And that's how I met Diane last year on a workshop that we were in together. And I just immediately said, this is a woman I want the world to know and meet and learn from. I love learning from her. And now I'll let her introduce herself to you.
Wow, thank you, Katie. Yeah, I know it was about a year ago when we met through the workshop. And that's when I kind of really kind of saw the potential of the Microbit. But what I do is I am a technology integration specialist here in Medfield, Massachusetts. I work at a middle school primarily, but I help support teachers and students and families with our one-to-one devices. And you can imagine nowadays it's even more intense in terms of support. But I also run the makerspace here. And so over time, I've been able to experiment and explore all different types of tools and resources and really have a passion for kind of learning and just figuring things out along with the students. And so we have so much fun when we have those chances here. I got selected as a Microbit champion, which brought me here today, and that'll be a fun journey here for the year. And so I appreciate you guys coming and listening to what we have to say about the Microbit and just coding and makerspace stuff. Thank you.
Yes. So definitely take advantage of Diane's amazing knowledge and just keep those questions coming. Like Palo said, we're here to just have a conversation with you. So don't hold back. We are here to help and teach and learn with each other. So our goals for this webinar are to share more of what is a Microbit, how can you teach with the Microbit, using a tool called Microbit Classroom. You don't need that tool, but it can be helpful, especially in these remote times. We're going to look at several projects that are available to you for free for teaching with the Microbit and answer your questions along the way. We're also taking a deep dive into Diane's classroom where you will see and hear from her students and how they are teaching with the Microbit and learning with the Microbit today. So you can kind of keep track of our progress through the webinar with this status bar at the bottom here, and you'll kind of know where we are each step of the way. So our hope today is that each of you, no matter whether you are brand new to the Microbit or you've been teaching with it for a few years, that you will leave with new skills, new ideas for your classroom. And as Palo said, there will be a raffle at the end. So we do hope you leave with a smile. So let's get started. What is a Microbit? The microbit is a tiny computer that allows any student to create technology. It's a very powerful tool, but it's very easy to get started. Over 25 million students are using this tool in over 70 countries, and you can find loads of resources, accessories for this tool. Pelo is going to talk about some of those at the very end today. You can program your microbit in Python, JavaScript, MakeCode, Scratch, and more. Today's workshop is going to focus on MakeCode, and we'll be doing lots of demos with MakeCode today. So as I said, students create technology with the microbit. These are just a few of the projects that you can find at microbit.org that give you and your students everything they need to build projects like these and more. A really popular one that we're going to look at in depth is a safe sea turtle activity, which we're actually going to do together in just a couple minutes. But first, let's just take a quick look at some of the details, because they do matter when it comes to that creativity in your classroom. What can your students create with the microbit? Well, the first thing to know is there are several sensors on board the microbit. That matters for your students who are building robotics and real-world applications, that they can collect data through touch logo on the front here, just like your cell phone screen when you're touching, as a touch indicator. We have actual physical buttons as a form of input. Other sensors on the back here, you can see that there's a compass and an accelerometer, which is a motion detector. You actually have an input. You can see the microphone on the front of the microbit here, and you can actually see where that chip lives on the back here. So there's a microphone. You also have a thermostat or a temperature sensor for measuring temperature. And here, this gold bar represents the radio antenna for wireless communication between microbits or for pairing your microbit to a mobile device. So this is radio and Bluetooth antenna. New on this microbit, you'll see there's a light to indicate that the microphone is on. That's new. And we also have this power light here, which is good because you can now power down your microbit. If you use the original microbit and left the battery pack in, you know that it would just keep using battery power. But now you can hold the reset button for 3 seconds, turn the light off, and actually turn off your microbit. So that's good for energy conservation. So those are some of the inputs or sensors, but your microbit also has several outputs. You can program these 25 LEDs on the front. You can also program this onboard speaker. This is actually a very powerful speaker, which does allow for voice playback. Many things that you can do with that as well. And then as I demonstrated at the beginning, you can use your alligator clips in these notches, or you can put the microbit into an edge connector. Like you see here, I've got my microbit just into this little accessory here, and it allows you to break out to access all those pins on the front of the microbit. So don't worry too much about, if those pins were new to you, don't worry too much about them, or ask questions and we'll dive more into them. What I really want to show you right now, though, are powerful lessons you can do with the microbit that don't require any accessories and actually don't even require the microbit at the very beginning. So together now, we're going to jump into this safe sea turtle activity and do some coding. So as it turns out, one of the problems being that baby sea turtles are facing has to do with the man-made lights on the beach. Biologically, the baby turtles, when they're hatching, they want to go toward the moonlight. They hatch at night, they see the moonlight reflecting off the surface of the water, and they go that direction. But what's actually happening in many of their habitats is they're hatching and seeing the man-made lights inland in the city, and the sea turtles are going the wrong way. And so the concept of designing technology to help the environment, if that's important to you, this is a great lesson. And it's a whole lesson kids can do without the microbit. So we're going to open this activity in MakeCode. And for those of you that are brand new to coding, I'm actually going to teach this for you. And those of you who have a little bit more experience, I hope that you'll find this to be an interesting activity you might want to bring to your students. So in the CSTA standards, Computer Science Teacher Association, One of the most very important topics is pseudocode, thinking about the code that we write in sentences or that we say to each other before we start actually coding it. It helps us to think through the problem. So let's think about the problem of sea turtles in the form of pseudocode. If the lights are getting dark outside, if the sun is setting, means the sea turtles might be hatching. If it's getting dark outside, we need a light to come on that isn't a white light, because the white lights are what are attracting the turtles. So as it turns out, your microbit has red lights on board. And just to demonstrate that, we can put a little heart over here. But we don't want this heart to just always be on. We only want to show it if it's getting dark outside. So let's use an if statement and program if it's getting dark outside. So another way of thinking about it getting dark outside is to think about the light level going down. So if the light level is less than a certain threshold. So when I was sharing with you about the sensors on the microbit, one that I didn't mention to you is the light sensors that are on the front of the microbit here. So if the light level is going down, let's say it's less than 100, we'll make a red light come on. You might imagine that if this is you're walking down the beach and there's bright white lights lighting up the path at night, instead of having bright white lights, we could have these little red lights lining the walkway. And so at night, when it gets dark, these lights come on. So now over here in my simulator, you notice this little sunshine shape. When I put it less than 100, the heart comes on. But if it's greater than 100, well, the heart's still on because I didn't tell it to go off yet. We're going to code it to go off. And so with a little program like this, students can begin to talk about a problem in the real world using technology to prototype a solution, and with the power of the simulator, can actually create their ideas right away. So that's our first coding activity. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and turn it over to Diane, who's going to talk a little bit about her classroom and possibly check in with Palo and see if we have questions after that.
I do. Yes, Katie, thank you. I got just two quick questions. I just want to summarize for everybody again. What is the big difference between the V1, which many may already have? I know you did it, but at a high level,
right,
to the V2? What would be the main differences?
The main difference of the V2 is there's a microphone. You see how the microbit's talking with me? Yep. The new microbit has a microphone, has a speaker, and notched edge connectors.
Okay.
There's also another sensor on this button. This is a button here. So okay. It's there's one more thing that I think is really cool. It actually has more processing power. Okay. The future artificial intelligence and machine learning activities you can do with the microbit are extraordinary. And we're in the process of developing those, and we'll be bringing those out later this year. So if you're looking for a tool for AI and ML instruction, this has the processing power for that.
Perfect. Last question for you, and then Diane, I have two for you. Is there any plan to have Arabic letters?
Yeah, actually, if you go to Make Code, you can choose your preferred language there. I think that there are possibly more than 20, close to 30 languages to pick from. Right. So let me get some of the translation information together, and I'll start dropping those links in the chat while Diane answers her questions.
Good. Yeah, and just a reminder to everybody, we are recording this. We also will send out a follow-up with the presentation and a link to it. And if there's any Q&A that has follow-up or documents, we will attach those URL. Diane, just a quick question before you go into your things. Can you explain what a microbit champion is?
Oh, a microbit champion?
Yeah.
So, those are people who are passionate about learning about the microbit and sharing it. So there's a group of us that Katie's been a part of. It's global, right, Katie? It's all around the world. You had to submit an application to say like how you are using it, why you're using it, and would you be willing to share to kind of help spread the love. And so that's what brought me here today, is that we just got started as a group here with the North American and with Katie leading us. And she gave us some things like, how would you like to present and just share what you're doing in the classroom already? And I said, sure. But it's nice just to have those connections with other people that are using it all over the United States, but also globally.
Definitely. I think anytime you can share best practices between educators is great. And last question, Diane, before you go into your presentation, what's in your makerspace? Someone asked a question, what was in your makerspace?
Well, you know what? My makerspace was dismantled this year. And so I came in, they took all of the furniture out and everything, and they put it in the auditorium, and then they just put chairs everywhere. So it was kind of a shock when you came in. But it was just, I wanted to give it like a sense of community. So we have all of these workbenches and long tables pushed together. So we have 3D printers. We had like 4 of them. Just a really entry level kind of machine. And then we have sewing machines. We have a workbench for tools. So getting kids used to using different types of materials, but also like cutting, with saws, with, different types of scissors. And then I am by heart a crocheter. So yarn is a huge part of the makerspace and trying to get kids interested in that. So pom-pom makers, knitting needles, crochet hooks, those are such cheap materials to bring into your makerspace and leads to like a lifelong skill that I would definitely go that route, especially if you're short on money. So we have all kinds of things. And then people often donate. So if you put the word out to your community, they will bring in, they'll say like, I cleared out my garage. Do you want this? So that's how I got like 3 sewing machines.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah.
Look forward to your presentation. Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome. All right. So let me share. Okay. So this is a picture of my maker space, and you can see that there's just really desks. They set me up with this nice TV monitor, which has helped out. So that becomes my kind of remote Zoom station for the kids that are Zooming in from home. But I get to teach 2 6th grade classes, coding, and I only teach them once a week. And it's like a rotation class. So they're there for 8 weeks, and then I get a whole bunch of new kids coming in each time. So everybody kind of, the idea is gets a little bit of a taste of what coding is. And so over time, I've kind of changed my approach to it, because before we used to use iPads and now we switched to Chromebooks. So the microbit and using the Make Code editor have been kind of fitting my needs and getting kids engaged and an easy tool to use. It's giving me a lot of entry points for kids, because a lot of times they're coming to me with maybe just the hour of code experience and just kind of filling out those block-based puzzles, but haven't really coded anything themselves. And then I'll have a few kids at the higher end that are saying, oh, can we learn JavaScript, or can we use Python, or can we do this and that? And so this has allowed me to kind of fill that range all with this one tool. The Make Code, and I'm going to show you this in a second, also has some built-in scaffolding for students. So kids that need that extra support. That support also provides independence for kids and choices. And then you'll be able to see there's a ton of different kind of cross-curricular content area projects that are right there and very short. So I'm able to do these within my class period, have them start and finish a coding project then. And let me quick show you what that Make Code website looks like. And I found this is the easiest way to kind of introduce. So I'm coming to you as a person who is learning how to code along with her students. And so I found this is really the tool that can get you from 0 to moving with coding all in one. So if I go to makecode.microbit.org, they already have a page that is full of tutorials built right here. And what's nice is that kids don't have to log on. There's no account needed. What it does is it does save the projects as you go. So you're going to see at the top of the screen, these are all projects that I've been working on, and I can go into them and edit them and change them. These are the tutorials. So for example, we've been working on, and I'm going to show you this in a second, the rock, paper, scissors. And right away, when I click on it, it gives you the options of these different tutorials. So I'll tell most of my students we're going to do the block-based one. But if you want to learn Python and JavaScript, it's the same game, you go for it. but you're kind of on your own because I don't really know how to do JavaScript. Yeah. So there are built-in pieces here that I, as a former special educator, appreciate so much. So once you tap into these tutorials, you're going to see you have this progress bar at the top. The simulator is going to come up in a second. And it's going to tell you what features you're going to use with your microbit. But this is the tutorial, and everything is color-coded based on the blocks that you're going to need. And what they do with these is that they even limit the number of blocks that are really available when you're coding the microbit from scratch, just to make it an easier on start for kids. But they would basically go through the tutorial and follow, and then see how it says click to show a hint. I tell students to use that if they get stuck, or if they want to go and check to see if they got it correct. So they can check here, but then they can also run the simulation over here. And so they can walk through this whole tutorial and have this as an independent way to complete the project that I'm asking them to do. The other thing that I do with this is that I can take a screenshot of the directions, and I can pair it with a screenshot of the example of the code, and I can put it on a piece of paper or on a Google Doc and have that available for kids as well. So if you have a student that's falling behind and getting frustrated, I'll say just copy the code and see if you can do that and get it to work. I'm gonna go back in here. So those are the parts and pieces right away that stuck out to me about using it. And then they're able to actually, let me go back in there. You're going to see when you're in the project, they can switch between the JavaScript and Python just to get a kind of a look and see. I guess maybe it's under once you do a project, your own project. Is that right, Katie? I think so. Yeah. You could give it a
Yes, you got it. It's perfect.
Okay. So today I had a class come in and kids were moving back and forth between the two just to get a, because they're curious. And I think it's a nice way to transition from one programming language to the next, to a text-based one. Okay. I'm also going to touch this. It makes it super easy for that digital workflow. So I know at our school, and probably everyone's felt the need to put everything in a digital format. So our whole learning environment, all of our teachers are using Google Classroom. Everything's through a digital means because we've gone from completely remote to hybrid to now we're doing, synchronous classes and a hybrid model, and we're moving back to all in person. But people might, some students might still be at home while they'll live stream in. So you have to have that flexibility to pivot. And so technology has given us that way to do that. And so, for example, one of the games that I like to introduce students with, because it works for those students on Zoom and in class, is that classic game, rock, paper, scissors, because who hasn't played rock, paper, scissors before? So we talk through what it means when you're playing it, breaking down the game into different parts. And then I know that it teaches these a little bit more advanced skills like conditionals, or the output of using that LED display on their microbit, or what type of input are you going to use. And so we break it down into coding it first, and then pushing it out to your device if they're in person. If they're at home, they're just simulating it on their screen. And then we actually play and interact with each other in both places. And this is something I can get done within that 40-minute class period.
Well, we can play rock, paper, scissors with it. If you shake it, it'll change to paper, rock, or scissors. This one's paper. Change it again. Paper again, but that's scissors. Yep. And let's see if it goes to rock. Paper, rock. That's rock.
There you go.
And you just shake it and you can play with it like she played with it.
Yeah.
Ready?
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
You win? What
It
is
was a rock, so.
rock?
a rock.
Oh, it won.
You guys are too funny. Old school, new school, right? All right. And she was so proud of herself that she actually figured that out by herself. She had to show everybody. So then the options of playing are, depending on what learning approach you're using, where the students are, they decided they wanted to play a tournament style in person. So here's a group of boys that I think there's about 50
Paper, scissors, shoot.
Rock.
Scissors.
I have scissors.
Scissors.
I got rock.
Oh
my
me and
God.
Kevin got
Okay,
rock.
you
two go. You two go.
Okay,
Then we're
I
out.
got scissors. Rock, paper, scissors, shoe. I have a rock. Yes, I won again. Again somehow.
2 in a row. Wow.
Okay, one more.
Right.
Rock,
Paper, scissors, shoe.
paper.
Scissors.
I have rock.
Scissors.
I have paper. I knock you out, but I rock you.
Okay, so you can see like that level of engagement. They just love it when they get to that final part where they actually get to play against each other. And we were able to do that in person, but we could also have the kids at home share their screen and play as well.
Paper, scissors.
Let me move on. And then we can build upon that skill. And so we like to call it hacking your code. So when we share it, the code with each other, so within Google Classroom, they're able to publish their link to their project and share it with each other. And then you can open it up, or we can talk about it. Where could we build upon the project here? So for rock, paper, scissors, we decided to add a 4th level of the coding that if we changed it from a range of 1 to 4, 1 would be the rock, they showed, or the paper, then 2 was rock, 3 was scissors, and then we added the death skull. So if you got the death skull, you were completely out of the game. Let me go back here. So there's 2 ways that I approach it. One, if I'm having the students do the tutorial, I actually have them go in and publish a link to their game, and then they come into the Google Classroom stream. So think about that like your timeline and social media, and they share it there. And the reason why I have them sharing in the stream versus an assignment is because then other kids can see it and they can play the other person's game. They can check their code, they can edit their code, and we can leave each other comments. And the other kind of mode or path you can go down is Microbit now has a Microbit classroom. So that means students, you can have them join a Microbit classroom, which Katie's going to talk about in a second. It gives you real-time access to see what students are actually coding. You can also push code out to those students directly of what you want them to kind of maybe tinker around with or debug or start from scratch, and then they can send it back to you. So if you have a student at home, you can download their code onto a Microbit so they could actually see what it looks like. And that comes in handy if you're like creating maybe a cardboard robot and you're attaching motors and things like that. So there's lots of options there. I'm gonna stop my screen and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, there was one that came up about, Diane, about your makerspace, whether it was in, is it in your media center or is it something separate at your school? Just a general question.
Yeah, it's in our library. Yes. So we kind of moved out a corner of the library and I just took over and I brought in tables, got rid of desks and all of that stuff.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, I've seen a lot of questions come through about just comparing the features of V2 with the existing microbit. And so I want to just assure everyone that we prioritize continuity when we launch the new microbit. And so before we talk about Microbit Classroom, I just want to quickly go back to MakeCode for a second, because this is, whether you have the original microbit or the new microbit with a speaker and the microphone, you're going to use the same programming window in MakeCode. Students will plug their microbit in and they will download their code just like they always have. What I wanted to point out for you to notice would be, where we've added that speaker on board the microbit. If you scroll to the bottom of the music toolbox, for example, you'll see it says microbit V2. These blocks here under the V2 category will only work on the microbit V2. So it's not at the top level, it's not distracting, it's not mixed in with the other blocks. In a very discrete way, we've added these in down here. And so if I were to try to download to a microbit, like for example, put this block in here, if I were to download this to the original microbit, you would have a little error across their screen that says 529. And that would indicate you've used a block that's not going to work on your microbit. You also may have noticed, if the eagle eye among you may have noticed, that when I brought this block out, the simulator changed. So we've got the notched edges here, we've got the touch logo, and we've got the microphone here. Also, this V2 icon appeared. So that is the main difference you will see in the editors. We've just, if you use the block, the simulator will change. And then the second question I had was about projects and lessons. Will new projects and lessons work with the original microbit? And the answer is yes. Even in these projects here that use sound on board, I just want to show you a really cool project. So even before the new microbit with the speaker, we were publishing projects that use sound because you can attach headphones to your microbit, either microbit. But even this is a really fun project. For your original microbits, just to get this speaker jack here, you plug the tip of it, gets connected to pin 0, and the end of it gets clipped to ground. And now any sounds that you put on your microbit will play through your headphones. So whether you listen to them through the onboard speaker or you listen to them through your headphones, they will work for you. Those are just a couple of quick examples. And now with that, I want to pick up where Diane left off about Microbit Classroom and share how you can use everything we're talking about can work for you remotely. Diane,
Katie,
yeah,
just two quick questions. Sorry. Sometimes when you're showing the demo, the little microbit has different colors. Does that mean anything? I
Nope.
see sometimes it's blue, red, green, yellow, etc.
Good question. The microbit comes in 4 colors, and it's just sort of a random draw which color you'll get. There's blue, pink, pinkish red, I should say, a yellow, and a green. And so the color doesn't mean anything other than it just randomly changes.
Correct. And then last question, there's only really 2 versions of the microbit, correct? Microbit version 1 and microbit version 2, correct?
That's exactly right. So microbit version 1, you can see it's just smooth on the bottom. Microbit version 2 has the notches for your alligator clips and those sensors we talked about.
Yeah, and I want to echo, we did a project with Alvin Independent School District in Texas where they had 7 junior high schools, and they put together a microbit kit because they were putting together an introduction to computer science course, and they used the V1. So they purchased 2,100 of those customized kits for their 7 junior highs. And now they're going to go to the V2 because the V1's no longer available. But the cool thing is the curriculum is put together, the activities using Microsoft MakeCode, it's exactly alike. There's no change, and they can move forward with the new technology. So
Excellent.
Cool.
So now jumping into the Microbit Classroom tool, this is a free way for you to teach with the Microbit remotely. It's a way to organize and manage a remote classroom. You can share code with your students like Diane showed you. You'll be able to, students can collaborate. They can see what each other are working on. You can share code between students. And I think most importantly, you can collect assignments from your students. And then for the privacy first movement for students, there are no student accounts. There's no registration, there's no login. And finally, it does give you a way to virtually peer over your student's shoulder, so you can help troubleshoot remotely the actual code that they're working on. And so I just wanted to quickly introduce you to this tool because this is something you could use tomorrow. Just with this simulator and with Microbit Classroom, you could have all your students coding safe sea turtle projects, later today if you're still teaching, depending what time zone you're in. So the easiest way to get to Microbit Classroom, though, is to come to microbit.org. Sorry, I clicked around a lot. I'm microbit.org. You can choose a project and open it in the classroom, or you can just use the classroom and come up with your own project. I wanted to demonstrate for you the Safe Sea Turtle project in the classroom because I think it's a great way to get started if you're brand new to the Microbit. So before we opened this project in MakeCode, and that was when I was just programming it for myself, but as the teacher, you may want to open this in the classroom so that you can share it with your students. So once you do that, you can set up your classroom. It's already been named for you, Saving Sea Turtles. And you just have to choose how you want your students to code it. And today we're focused on make code, so we'll stay here. And as I mentioned, if you don't save this, it will not be saved anywhere. That's because there's no tracking of this information. So if you don't want to save it, don't save it. But however, I know many teachers who prefer to save because they like to launch it the next day for classroom instruction. So we're going to start by completing the code setup by going to the editor page, which is right here. And on this page, this code probably looks real familiar to you from the activity we did earlier in the webinar. But for my students now, since you've already seen this code, I want to take this up a notch. I don't want to just give it to them. Let's make a debugging challenge, which is a great creative thinking problem for students to come into code and begin to figure out what's it supposed to do and what's it not doing. And so in this project, maybe I would add a comment for my students and give them, this could be like sort of like a morning work activity. Kids come in, they log in, and you could say, how could we say this? We could say, please help me. My safe sea turtle light isn't working right. Can you figure out what the problem is and fix it? Cool. Now, this would obviously require students to know what the goal is. So I'm assuming you have prior knowledge from this activity. And so when you're debugging, you know what the goal is. If this was the very first time students were seeing it, I would need to give more explanation about what is the expected behavior of the program. And then they could begin to debug it and come up with creative solutions. The idea here is there's not one right way to do this. That's very important. So we'll share this code with the students. And now students could log in. The classroom can only hold about 30 students at a time. And since there are more than 30 people here today, unfortunately, we can't all log in to get that student experience, but I can still demo for you. If you were to go to microbit.org/join and enter in this classroom name and this PIN number, you would begin to enter the classroom and that code that I just wrote would appear on your screen. And here from the teacher dashboard, you'd see the tile board of students logging in. And you could click on a student's name, see what they're coding. And if they're in a Zoom room with you or Google Meet, you can be talking about the code while you're looking at their screen. So Microbit Classroom is a great way to teach remotely when paired with the video tool. Also, it's a great way to teach in person as well, just because you can share code with students who are maybe socially distant across your classroom. It's another great way to share in person as well. You can download screenshots of your students' work for assessment, or you can save the classroom and then reopen it the next day. One tiny detail I just want to make super clear. You can't have more than one classroom open at a time. Because it is privacy first, it works on a browser to browser connection. So if you're using your Chrome browser for this this Microbit Classroom session, you can't open a new tab and open a new Microbit Classroom session because your browser itself is already being used for this. So I have seen teachers who will open a Chrome browser for one classroom, and then they're going to open a Firefox browser to run a second classroom at the same time. That's not recommended, but I have seen people try that. The best solution is to run one classroom at a time using a Chrome browser. Okay. So that wraps up Microbit Classroom. With our remaining time, Diane and I wanted to talk with you about projects and ideas for teaching and learning with the Microbit. But I just want to pause, Palo, and check in and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, there's a couple questions. One would, so basically you could use this classroom project thing to share with both your remote class and also your in-person class, correct?
Exactly.
And then would you need a new classroom for each new project?
Yes, you would want a new classroom for each new project. That's correct.
Okay. And in general, on Microbit, what age level or grade levels do you think it's applicable to where you've seen the most success?
Ages 8 to 14.
Okay.
It's easy. It's 8 to 14. That's absolutely the sweet spot. We do see very ambitious teachers teaching younger ages with the Microbit. And because this is such a powerful tool for learning Python, we do see older students, high school students using it as well.
Yep.
8 to 14 is absolutely the sweet spot though.
Okay. And if you were going to have an after school program, right? And so you had a class on Tuesday afternoons and you had one on Wednesday afternoons, would you create different classrooms or how would you handle something like that?
I would use different classrooms. Now remember, they only work at the time you're using it. You can't make one for the next day. You open it up right then for your students. They work in their projects and submit them right then. The second you close your browser or you close that window, the classroom closes. So it's a live connection between your browser and their browser, and you want to create it in real time.
So do they lose, so in that case, which is great from a privacy perspective, do you lose the data or any of the projects you've previously selected if you want to use it in another classroom the next day or something like that?
You don't lose it as long as you save it. And
Okay.
so you would do, so let's say it's the Tuesday after school class and everyone's leaving, you would just in the classroom, click Save Classroom and download the classroom HTML file. And then the next day or next Tuesday, what you do is this file saved on your computer, right? So let's just come back into the Microbit Classroom. You drag this file from your computer here into this window, and it'll say resume classroom session.
Okay. And then I know you hit upon this, both you and Diane, but just kind of remind me, because I can be thick. Like, you know how you dropped right into the logic and the make code coding and stuff like that? Is there any like basic tutorials for microbit so that you could, you know, from a teacher perspective or even a student perspective?
Mm-hmm.
That would
Yes.
be get started. Okay.
And it's right, get started, first steps. And right here, this little category, setup. And then right away, you're programming LEDs and buttons, the sensors. And this walks you through the absolute beginner's guide to getting started. And as an educator, if you were to get a microbit, I would say click get started and just work yourself through this column. It's free professional development.
Okay. And in general, let's say I was a teacher and an educator, and I was going to set up an introduction to computer science curriculum. I'm looking to try to create something like that. What suggestions do you have for something like that where I'm creating a course, either a 13-week course or a quarter or what have you?
I strongly well, this one is for grades 6 through 8.
Yep.
But because the way they've laid it out, you can easily hack this for 4th and 5th grade and younger. But this one's completely free. So I'll drop this link in the chat here. This one is an intro to CS class from Microsoft.
Correct.
Using the microbit and MakeCode.
And that's the project, Katie, we did with Alvin Independent School District, was using that 14-week course and the kits and stuff like that. And they've had some fantastic results with that. Are there any other curriculums out there that you're aware of that would be easy to use?
Yeah, these all here in the lesson section over here, this slider bar, these are, I haven't counted them, but these are all curriculums that are all free and they're comprehensive. The ARM school one is a pretty good, this one here, I would check this one out.
Okay, got it. So we talked about training materials. Advantage to using Scratch, is that to drive hardware?
It's completely up to you. Diane, I don't mean to answer all the questions. Feel free to jump in as well. Sorry about that. Have you used Scratch with your students or is it mostly MakeCode?
I have used Scratch in a very minimal way. I mean, part of why we haven't is because we have a privacy policy that Scratch doesn't sign contracts with districts. But I was going to point out, and you're on that screen there, and I saw somebody in the chat said, oh, it works with Swift. So there's other places that you can actually edit code that works with the microbit, which makes it pretty powerful. But Scratch, I know there's a game where they've added a bunch of different sensors too, where you can interact with the game. It looks like a ball is falling and you hit it with your hands. I think it's video sensing or something like that. And then you can add the microbit as a controller, right, Katie?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually, I had it. If you can, your microbit has the accelerometer. I mentioned the motion detector. You can clip that microbit onto a winter glove and pair it to Scratch, and it becomes a gesture controlled wearable. And so, like Diane said, your microbit is being used actually to bat the ball around in your Scratch window. I'll drop a link to that in the chat.
And this is a question that's come up also is I know you've taken us through the microbit classroom and all that, where there's different activities and things like that. Where would you store or share your work, maybe with other educators or with the students, if you had certain particular activities, lessons and stuff like that? Where would you do that?
So like from a classroom management perspective of assigning work to students?
Not only assigning work, but maybe you could have, extra, just put different places you would store this type of stuff. Are you saying put it, because with the microbit, maybe I missed this, with the microbit classroom, right? The work goes away unless you save the classroom, correct?
Yes.
So if you've decided that there's 6 different activities that you wanted to kind of incorporate, is everything you're saying put it in the microbit classroom?
I would not do that. Thank you for clarifying that. The microbit classroom is just a real-time connection, one project at a time. It's not a place to really store information. What I would do, and then Diane should absolutely jump in on this. If I'm assigning projects to kids ahead of time or some kind of choice board and I want them to pick,
Yep.
This is the best place to come. One of the best, I should say, projects. Here we've got over 70 projects that walk you through the basics. You get a 30-second overview and then a 2-minute coding tutorial. It shows you the code and you can either open it in the classroom for your students, or if you gave this link to your students, they could open this project themselves and make code. So I've liked to make my choice boards by going to the project page and then, maybe we're focused, like I mentioned, that motion detector, the accelerometer, maybe we're focused on the accelerometer and I want students to pick an accelerometer project that's interesting to them and try it.
Yep.
This would be a good place to do that. What do you think, Diane?
Yeah. No, so I always use Google Classroom as my main platform, and under Classworks, I create topics like today's lesson and I add materials there. So today we're focused on, like today we did the hot potato game and I created a slideshow with instructions. If I want them to save their project and have it published, like we do digital portfolios here. If I publish the project in MakeCode, it lets me get a link that they publish, copy it and put it somewhere, but it also offers an embed code. So they could like embed it into Book Creator if that's their platform, or we use Google Sites for digital portfolios. So that would be a nice record for kids to have, to say, hey, look what I did back in 6th grade and look what I'm working on now. So that's what I like about, I don't think you can do that in microbit classroom. You'd have to go through MakeCode first to do that, so that they have that share option where Katie's pointing.
Yeah. Diane's, that's a great point. Sorry, Palo, just to reiterate that grabbing this, I'm sure Palo, you're about to ask what I think we're all on the same page right now. I apologize for that.
Okay.
I'm not sorry we're on the same page. I'm sorry that I interrupted you when we were all going to be on the same page. Okay, all right, I covered all those bases. What Diane was just sharing is a really powerful solution for record keeping with those digital portfolios. Kids can actually publish their projects and get their own URL directly to the work they did. Now, this isn't being published to a community where other people can click into their code. This is just being identified by a URL. So now, look, I've got a QR code I could do something with. I've got a direct URL link to my project, and I could put that into a document for, in Google Classroom. I could email that to my teacher. I could save that, for later in the year, or share it with someone. So you see, just by going to that URL, I can open the project up and boom, here I am again. Thanks for bringing that up, Diane.
Yeah, we also use Padlet as like our virtual bulletin board where kids can share and then check out each other's code as well. I see somebody said Seesaw is another great option. Yeah, gallery on Google Sites, absolutely.
Good. Hey, and this one, Diane's probably a little bit more to you, and I know you kind of mentioned a little bit of this. Have you done a lot of your work right now having kids at home and in your class, or you're in your library or makerspace area?
Yes, I would say we've done all of these changes, but for the past 2 months, we're moving more towards, we were hybrid at first, where
Yep.
kids at home were asynchronous and we were in person. And I had the in-person kids, and then right after vacation, we switched to adding the remote kids into the classes. And so it was a little bit challenging because they came in at a point where we already started within working on projects. But, at the same time, I was using Microbit, and because it has these options through MakeCode where kids don't need the device, that it made it easier for me to kind of pick up where we were and move everybody forward.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Last question really to both, not last question, but one more question that came up is to both of you. Microbit's definitely, it seems like it's very scalable, different tier levels. It's great. It can be used at all ages, in our opinion. What do you think is why the Microbit would be, a better solution, a better educational tool than maybe a Makey or an Adafruit Circuit, playground, or some of the other products out there? Why do you think it's so cool?
Diane, do you have thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, number one, the cost. It's very reasonable. It's like an all-in-one kind of package, and you can build add-ons to it. But then the resources are so accessible, and you can add, you can use different editing tools, but you can find a ton of different project ideas that are really simple to use. Like, kids don't have to do the super long coding project. I went to my 8th grade science teacher this week, and I showed him, and he was in awe of all the sensors that are built into it. And he's like, we need to get this in for 6 through 8. And he already has pegged the weather station as his thing that he wants to do next with these kids. And it's just easy. It's just that simple, because I've used my Little Bits, and I've used Chibitronics, and I've used Makey. I would say this was like one streamlined tool with all of the resources that are accessible at the same time. It has that range of going from easy to, a very higher level.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. Katie, any comments on that?
It just comes to your learning goals. If you're supporting students creating technology across the curriculum, no matter what your skill level is or their skill level, I think the Microbit is the best solution for getting started and going anywhere. And I really can't add too much to what Diane said. I think she said it really well.
Well, it's funny, when Diane was talking about knitting and stuff like that, I've seen people engage, put Microbits into knitting and different types of things. And I think we see it as just a scalable device. And we're also seeing it's starting to be incorporated into other robot systems and things like that, which allows you to even scale up more into the high school and stuff like that with different types of things. Putting a weather station on top of a robot based on a Microbit or something like
right?
that.
Yes.
Cool.
Actually, I wish I could have found it quick enough. We had an amazing weather station activity for at-home learning from last summer. Definitely, just for more ideas, come to the news page, and we're constantly publishing projects from the community and get even more ideas here, including a weather station one, if I can find it. Thanks very much, Palo.
Yeah, no. And the other thing, I think the key thing is tons of accessories too, all different types of sensors in addition to the ones that are built in there too. So Katie and Diane, do you guys have anything else to cover? Because I could move into two last slides we have. So
that's it.
Yeah, that's all we got.
Well, that's been great. Let me just kind of close up here, and I'll share my screen. And let's just make sure I get this correct this time. I think it's sharing. Do you see the whole slide? Is it all up this time or not? No?
It's not being shared. I mean, we see your slide, not in present mode. There you go.
There we go. Okay. So just a couple things I just wanted to close, and I thought it was just interesting just to make sure. We get a lot of questions here at Eduporium in regards to the packaging of it. And we thought it would be interesting just to kind of indicate there were really kind of 4 different types of packaging for Microbit. One is the single kit, which comes with the Microbit and a USB cable. and that's something that's available right now because of the huge interest in it. They're a little less available that we're seeing right now. There's definitely a scarcity in that. But we are in the price point between a single kit and a Go kit, which comes with everything. It comes with the microbit V2, the cable, the battery, the battery holder, and a user guide. And it comes in a separate box, which makes it great to either take it in the classroom or take it home. And those are starting to come into more, we're starting to see more of those. There are definitely under, allocations, but it's just something to keep in mind. The next level up would be a club kit, which would be one box just like that. And basically in it, it has 10 basically, it doesn't have individual kits, it's individual components, 10 microbits, 10 cables, 10 battery holders, etc. So it's all in one box, which makes it good for some activity. However, the Go kit is great when you're trying to have kids at remote and things like that. So there is one other solution, which is a 300 pack, but that is just 300 of the single kits, and those are very, very scarce right now. And so we highly recommend educators look at the Go kit just because of the delta between the single and the Go. It comes with everything to a turnkey or the club kit. So before we go to my next slide, what I did want to do is thank everybody for attending today. We will definitely send out the recording. We definitely will send out a copy of any presentation, any links and things like that. And I do want to thank all the educators for attending today. We do really appreciate your time and effort today in attending. But I also want to thank both Katie and Diane for the great feedback. It was fun to kind of learn. It's funny, every time I get on and learn more and more about microbit, and I actually love the cardboard microbit, that's something that's on my Christmas list for next year. But I do want to thank that. So thank you very much, you two. I appreciate it, especially Diane, for you sharing what things work in the classroom. That is just critical. And I look forward to kind of building the community here as we move forward.
Yeah.
In summary, one last thing, we did talk about, we have done this for one little sales pitch, is this is an example of the Introduction to Computer Science course. We did build this kit with Alvin Independent School District. They took out 2,100 kits, and they basically leveraged the Microsoft MakeCode 14-week curriculum to put in an Intro to Computer Science course across 7 junior highs. Their 8th one is coming on board. So if you're interested in that, please contact us. You can see it comes in a plastic kit with everything so the kids can take it home, put it in their pack, or you can, store it up for the next year. And then the most important thing is a raffle. So here's the deal. That is on waiting for your emails. So we have 3 Microbit Go kits, which will go out next week. We have a large shipment coming in. And so if you email thad@eduporium.com and you tell Thad what you will do with the Microbit V2, Thad will get back to you today, and he's going to select 3 entries, and those people will get a raffle. So please put your name, your address, and what you're going to do with the Microbit, and we'll send out 3 as soon as the next box, the big shipment comes in the warehouse here, and we'll let it go. Okay? So with that, I want to thank everybody today for an excellent day. I appreciate your time. And if there's any other last questions, we'll look at them and make sure that they're answered in the email that comes out. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, educators. Have a great day and be safe. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.